has taken decisions that we must mobilize and partner with the private sector to support industrialization and develop value chains in the region. You will know that in this region, in terms of all the intra-regional trade taking place, about 68% of it consists of manufactured goods from South Africa, which actually underscores the trade imbalances in the region in favor of South Africa. The fact that the South African economy is the most advanced in the Southern African region, and therefore there is a greater need for us to industrialize the region, to invest in infrastructure development as the driver of growth, and on the back of which we are going to industrialize and to develop the value chains. So there's a number of sectors that we are looking at that are going to underpin that industrialization. They include the auto sector, they include some of the beneficiation of some of the minerals. They also include looking at driving the localization program, developing industrialists on the basis of local procurement. That is what we are going to be working on in the next 12 months. We will be building on the programs that were already implemented by the Zimbabwean and the Swazi chairships, and ensuring that we take that program forward to ensure that there is greater industrialization, and we therefore improve the quality of the goods upon which we are going to trade with one another. And of course, that includes agro-processing.
Yes, Minister, one issue that has come up is the issue of implementation. The argument is that, yes, there are good proposals, there are good resolutions that are being taken, but the issue when it comes to implementation, nothing comes up. Has this issue been addressed here?
The issue of implementation is quite important, not only at the moment when projects are being implemented, but it's important, it's also affected by the processes prior to the finalization of the projects to be implemented. The development of project proposals, the lack of capacity in many countries in the region to develop projects that are bankable, that will be funded by the private sector. That is why the SADC took the decision that we must partner with the private sector and mobilize the capabilities of the private sector, the state-owned companies, to develop that capacity for project preparation, project implementation, and project management, so that the projects that are being implemented can be delivered at the agreed timelines. So these are all the issues that the South African chairship is going to focus on. I was talking to Minister Rob Davis, and he indicated to me that around October he'll be going to the SADC headquarters in Botswana, where he will engage with the Secretariat on the practical steps to be taken to ensure that this industrialization strategy that's been adopted here can be properly implemented. And I, on my part, with Ministers of Finance and Investment, will also be focusing on harnessing the resources and capabilities of the private sector in order to develop these skills and capacities we need to attract investments in infrastructure, to develop project proposals that are bankable, get investments going so that the infrastructure program can be implemented, and we realize that alignment between infrastructure rollout and industrialization through implementation of localization programs.
Well, Minister, I'm interested in knowing as to when you're with your counterparts in as the summit progressed, the issue of funding, was it discussed? Are there any perhaps resolutions that you've taken in terms of addressing that issue? Because even the infrastructure projects, you need some kind of funding, but the reality is that most African countries, not African countries alone, are going under economic strain.
Absolutely. I think the positive thing, though, is that the economy of the continent of sub-Saharan Africa and Southern Africa has begun to grow again positively. So the major risks and drawbacks remain the slow growth in the South African, Nigerian and Angolan economies. But generally speaking, countries like Rwanda, Mozambique, and others, Tanzania, are growing robustly on the back of resources, tourism, and agriculture. So that is going to provide a spare that we need to remain positive on the African and Southern African growth story. But that notwithstanding, it's still, the issue of funding remains a massive challenge for us in Southern Africa. But it's not because there is no money. It's because we are not able to attract this money and lock it into projects, and we are not able to develop bankable projects. And the misalignment between the programs that governments are doing and the private sector it creates this lag in terms of investment attraction. And so we are going to be paying attention to this. The summit supported the development of the Regional Development Fund, and the summit received positive reports from the President of the African Development Bank in terms of the high fives that the AFDB is implementing. And the summit also took note of the launch of the Africa Regional Center of the New Development Bank. And so if you look at a variety of projects, the investments which have already been undertaken by the Development Bank of Southern Africa, the African Development Bank, and other existing institutions, with greater coordination, leadership, and alignment, especially between government and the private sector, we are going to see a greater attraction of investments into SADC for the rollout of infrastructure, the implementation of the industrialization program, as well as the opening up of regional value chains, and therefore the improvement in intra-Southern African trade.
Well, that is the Minister of Finance, Malusi Gigaba, giving us an insight on some of the agreements that they've made here in terms of industrialization. As we know that it is top of the agenda. I'll now go back to my colleague Patricia just to interact with some of those